Aquarian Music Witch, the podcast.
I just remember at the time it was so fascinating, but then my life fell apart right afterwards, like while I
Mhm.
was like still like kind of in it. And it was so much contrast. So
Okay.
much contrast, like immediate, like, like
Do
it
you want
was
to
like
talk about
this.
that? We didn't really get to have like a full, are you comfortable talking about your spiritual awakening story? Or do you want to like leave that on the floor, which is okay. But I would love to just hear it and like
Yeah,
how you
we can
got to it and what happened after it.
yeah, we can talk about it. Um
Only if you're comfortable.
I-
But I think yours in particular is really fascinating. I think it would be really helpful for a lot of people to hear probably.
yeah. I'll kind of like I'll try to funnel it like the parts that are more extraneous, but I went through something very hard, and then I kind of was in this state of like, well, it's either like get on a path or die, you
Mm.
know? And Kundalini yoga like snuck up on me. Um I never saw this girl again, but I was at my friend's place, invited me over, this like cabin in the woods on this deck, and this amazing witchy girl. I like know her name. I don't feel like the name. I'll just mention her first name was Sam, and
Okay.
she was so cool. And she held an ear in a lot of space, and she like told me like about it and offered to like facilitate like a little session with me and my friend on the deck. And she did, and it was really great, and it helped me a lot. And then I found my teacher in Asheville who was teaching Kundalini yoga at the time, and I started going to her not for too long. I don't even remember how long at this point, but maybe like 3 or 4 months or
Oh
something like
wow, yeah.
that.
Not long at all.
It was just so like, um powerful for me, and it felt right. And it got to that point where I was like, I want to go further with it. And she guided me to her teachers in New York City.
Okay.
Um, and so I did this program, and one of my teachers was the custodian of the archives of the teachings. Like, what a fucking Harry Potter
That is
ass title.
amazing. Yeah. Trained by
And so,
actual Dumbledore.
yeah, literally. And she had access to teachings that nobody else literally on the planet has, because she has like these videos of Yogi Bhajan teaching things that, like, shouldn't really be honestly replicated by most people.
Oh.
um like things that would just blow your mind, like. And like her specifically, she changed my life with some of her things. And then in a class one day, she was in the middle of a lecture, and she just had that look on her face, and she was so airy. I remember talking to her. She was older, she's like in her 70s, and I felt her aura in the room before I ever even saw her when she was walking behind me. And she's like, all air sign stuff for
Hmm.
her sun, moon, rising. And
Love
like,
that,
she's
Mary.
just such an airy. And she told us all to stand up, and she guided us through this like insane posture. I don't even know how to describe it to you, but yeah, I just went completely out of body. And was not connected to my body at all anymore. And it's such a cliche, but it was just like the brightest white light. And the visual was actually me sitting in a circle with my teachers in New York City.
Hmm.
We were just laughing in ecstasy, and it was the most blissful feeling I've ever had in my entire life. And then I remembered my other teacher in Asheville. Before I left, she had told me, now, if you go too high up, like, remember your body,
Hmm.
don't pass out, like, go back into your body.
Okay.
And I like remembered that while I was floating around in the ether, and I went back down into my body. and yeah, it was like my whole body was like, it was just liquid fire, and it was just so powerful, and I felt like I was levitating, and like I felt in the same way that I would when I would be like on like really good acid.
Hmm.
And for quite some time, and even like visually, like the reality was like brighter, and I ended up in the beginning of it all like attracting really amazing experiences, and connections with people that went deep, and it was just such a creative time, and a powerful time in my life, and it's when everything in my life, almost like, like when people talk about like when you are dying, like, you have your life flash before your eyes. It was
Yeah.
almost like that. It was like from my birth up until that point, every single dot connected, and I made sense out of every little experience that I've ever had up until that point. And yeah, then I went through like the I'm the chosen one thing for like a couple weeks, and then my life fell apart
Oh God.
after that. And it was just so hard when you're like so ungrounded and so aware, and everything is heightened, and
Do you feel like, and that's an extremely powerful experience that you just described. And a lot
yeah.
of people say that their Kundalini awakenings feel like that burning fire up the spine. So that's very interesting because it's a very commonly described kind of experience for people who've gone through something like that. But I guess what I wanted to ask was, do you think that your behavior as a result of that turned into what happened right then, where things were falling apart, or do you think that it was helpful to be kind of floating above it all so that you could save yourself from the pain of some of that, or do you think that maybe it was keeping you out of touch in a way that like didn't serve you well in the real, in the physical, you know?
That's a great question. Yeah, thanks for curving that way. I never really Interestingly enough, I haven't really thought about that. I think that
Oh,
yeah, interestingly enough, I haven't. I think that and that's why I love talking to you. You always like bring a cool perspective onto
good.
things, and questions. I think that I think that that was part of the process. I think that everything had to fall apart.
Hmm.
I
That's
think
the
that
dark night of the soul part. Yeah, it's common
I
too.
feel like that was almost a soul contract. It was almost like you're going to experience such polarity and contrast, and I think that's why too because the way that I have taught yoga, and the way that I have like, taught elementary astrology and everything, it is always I'm striving to be like very humble about it all, and to also be very compassionate and understanding, because we are all just human. We're not above being human, and part of the human experience is going through extreme hardships. And I think that people though who have accessed like a level of awareness, in the ways that I have, it's like a blessing. It's like a blessing to be able to hold space for people who are just really struggling. So I think that was such a sensitive time and experience for me, because I just felt it all. And I think that it really shaped who I am now. I think it had to happen that way.
Yeah, they call that a canon event sometimes. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
It's like a TikTok thing that goes around, but it's like if you see someone else going through something that it's like they had to do for their life, for the course of their life, and you can see that it's a bad choice, but they have to learn that, then people will be like, yeah, I couldn't stop her. It was a canon event, something that has to happen. And I think I mean, that is what they call the dark night of the soul. And I mean, I went through, also one of those things where it's like you're standing on a rug that gets pulled. Like, oh my God. And it's not always, I mean, it feels bad, but I think a lot of what happened to me through my moment like that, when I look back on it, was like, well, in a way, thank Christ, thank all the Christs that that happened to me exactly that way, because I would have been so stuck in the mud if I was still with some of those people that we just had to part ways. And now I'm like, it's like old hat. Like I'm a little tired of it, honestly, because a lot of people will come into my life for a certain reason. And I'm not the kind of person who has big explosive ends to my friendships historically. But for some reason now that I've gone through this like awakening thing, I will get these people in my life that are like close people. And then whoosh, done. Never was meant to be. Clearly learned my lesson. Looking back on that, thank God. But like it happens like all the time now. And it's like at that time it was brand new when I was doing that. And I had to go through all that because now um I need to know, I need to have that skill because otherwise you get stuck and it's like we're meant for more. You and me both. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you feel like that, but that's what I went through. Same thing.
So that happened to me like during that hard time. I think like I just realized, I think they realized too, like it was more than like just a couple, it was like five different connections
Mhm.
of mine exploded. And like it was just like we did not vibrationally like match each other in such a extreme way that we just, like could not be friends or connected or coworkers anymore. And we just had to part ways, and it wasn't in the most healthy or gentle way.
Hmm.
And I can recognize too my own role in those things. You know what I mean too?
Yeah, I understand.
Because when you're also radiating like that, when you've like gone through your awakening, it's too much for some people. I can get that.
Yeah.
I'm like, for me, I can look back on that and be like, wow, that must have been a lot for them to like have to like take on, like they didn't ask to take it on, and they but
Yeah.
yeah, it happens that way, right?
It does. And I think
Um,
you said before it's kind of isolating, and that is part of it, is it just feels like, oh my God, am I never going to find like my people? And yet you do. Like in the midst of all that, I've also found some of my people, and I've also had some of my people there the whole time, such as yourself, but really there are people, and there are people that have gone through these things and that understand and that can be that are on this level, I think. And I think it does feel so isolating, but that's kind of not the full story at the same time.
you go through like the planetary like shifts with it, like seasons almost within that process. Like first it's like, the Venus, like the Venusian, just like I'm so in love and obsessed with this thing. And then it's like the Mars, like the action stuff and like, the almost like sexual energy behind it. And then it's like it might be out of order here, but it's like, and then, you kind of get into like that Capricorn energy of like trying to like build it up kind of thing, like very Saturnian and very serious with it all. And then it's like Pluto, and it's like two sides to that. It's almost like everything falls apart and then everything regenerates. It's like almost a process, like a seasonal process through it all. That's also the planetary archetypes can help me to paint the picture there for those who get that. But and I know that you do. But yeah, it's such a I mean, it's almost like I could like, pinpoint how it's gonna go. Like
Oh, well,
first you're gonna sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. First, you're
Oh, no, you're fine. I need people to interrupt me so that I
gonna.
stop talking.
You
So
don't know. I've loved to hear you talk. I'd rather you talk. I was just going to ask about astrology because
yep.
you're also probably more adept at that whole subject than I am. And if you're talking about like predicting things, I think there's a lot in not just natal charts, but like the astrological movements overall that can help with understanding things like the future. So I'm sure you can. I'm sure you do have like predictive understanding.
Yeah, astrology has helped me so much to just helps me understand people, helps me to understand myself better. Um Looking into the future, it can it's almost like sometimes though you open that Pandora's box and it's really hard to close it. So you got to be careful with that. But and I actually have stepped away from astrology a little bit over the years.
Okay.
It's just not my primary focus.
What is
Um
right now then? Where are you kind of focused right now?
I've been getting into chadao tea bowl ceremony.
Oh,
Um, there's a place across the street from me where this amazing woman who like studied in Taiwan under a tea master, like, learned like this whole and God, let me tell you, when she facilitates tea ceremony, it shifts things. It's like such a gentle, like a yin um way to just it it unfolds you in a way, and you're so open, and everything just softens. It softens you into a meditative state in the most gentle, beautiful way. And I think that I came from that like fiery place of Kundalini yoga, and I'm softening more into like the watery, the water path almost, you
I
know, over the years. And I've become just more gentle and with how I want to treat my body, and like when you're meditating through the tea ball ceremonies, it's things effortlessly come to you. Or this is my experience. They come to me and can kind of like, instead of peeking into the future with the astrology stuff and predictive astrology, which there's a place for it. Trust me, I still am on board. I just have veered from it a little bit. But I I feel like, more than anything else, we all have choice and free will, and to navigate that and to meditate on how we want to build the bones for our future,
yeah.
and then applying it, like, you can also work with astrology in that way, like applied astrology, like using good angles and good channels to mark times to like do the action, or sow the seeds, depending. But yeah, the T-bowl ceremonies have helped me a lot to just show me that, like, also to be watery and flexible, sometimes it's you have to put the astrology to the side and do things in your own personal flow without looking at the charts.
That's amazing.
And so I highly recommend that. I don't, it's not, something that you're going to find in any city. I bet I'm
Yeah, well,
extremely.
yeah, you must have really lucked out to find that teacher, but also I think they say when you are ready to learn something, the teacher will present themselves, you know? So I feel like you're like, it's because you were at that stage where you were ready for it. You must have found the right exact person.
I did. And what's so funny about that? Not funny, haha, but just, the connections. This woman is like very good friends with my first Kundalini yoga teacher
Oh,
in
wow, small world.
Seoul. And she's also like a very good friend, and also the teacher mentor to one of my friends who now lives in Asheville, who lived in St. Pete for 14 years, who taught her T-bowl ceremony, and she showed me it, and then I moved here, and then this woman is literally a 2-minute walk, 2-minute, 3-minute walk across the street from me, doing these chadao T-bowl ceremonies twice a month.
That's
And
amazing.
it's just like you can't make it up, you
No,
know.
you make it up. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and that's how you kind of like know when you're on the right path, I think, too, right?
Yeah,
It's
I think
just
so. There's signs. There are. You got to be discerning, but there are signs. Yeah.
sometimes more subtle than others. For me, like the universe wants to make it obvious
Yeah.
sometimes. Because I'm like an Aquarian. I'm like, I need answers. I need concrete, I need the obvious concrete evidence. And the universe is like, like, relax, bitch.
Relax, dude.
Like,
That's funny.
oh,
Well, I'm so glad you're going to new places always on your path, you know. I think you are always teaching me new things every time we talk too. So I'm happy that you're there now because it's just a sign that you're evolving. It's a sign that I think like any kind of identity, any kind of like, you know, anything you could say about yourself, it's like something you kind of have to go through and process. And then if you're healthy, if you're healing, you're moving on to the next thing. And you're always kind of growing and expanding. And I think that's a sign of that. That's a sign of healing always.
Expanding is the key word, right? Like I think we sometimes, and God, I brought this analogy up earlier in reference to something completely different with somebody, but sometimes we put a frame around things, right? With like a label or like, like, I don't know. I just don't want to be limited. Like, I was a Kundalini yoga teacher for a while and an astrologer. And like, I put a frame around those things and then it really limited me. And now I want to like harbor I want to expand outside of the frame. And so I'm taking the frame off things lately. I don't want to define the way that, I heal or how I believe or what I want to teach or what I want to learn anymore. Like, and I think that that just allows me to be so open. Back when it was Kundalini yoga, it was like just Kundalini yoga. Back when it was astrology, it was just astrology. And I think like now, I think like every little thing can like really teach us something and just like being open. It's
Yeah.
almost like a diamond, right? Like it's like all a part of the same diamond. It's just different fractals,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you're right. I've been thinking about that with like identity because even in the intro to this, like I recorded the intro to this podcast a couple weeks ago, and I was like, how do I even introduce myself? And I'm like, well, I'm queer, I'm non-binary, bisexual, and I am neurodivergent. And like, do I say I'm autistic or like whatever that is? And do I, what do I say about myself and what are all these categories? And each of those things that I thought of were things that felt so important to me when I kind of newly discovered that I was them. Like when I was kind of a late blooming queer because I was mostly just convinced I was straight because I was very literal minded and didn't understand that was an option for a while. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm queer. Like now this is like a whole me. It's who I am. You have to accept me. And now I'm just kind of like, I don't even like, I know what I am, like, but whatever. And then the same thing with the neurodivergent stuff. Like for a minute, it's like you put it on like this big, fluffy, warm fur coat, and you're like, oh, this is keeping me warm. This is exactly right. Like this is what I've been missing the whole time. But really, like you're like a closet of coats. This is a terrible analogy, but like, do you know what I mean? Like you kind of like get more comfortable with them, and then you're like, well, that is like a facet, like you're saying. It's not the end all be all of my identity. And I feel like it's a sign that you've done a good job of kind of integrating it back in when it is like that, when it's like, wait, why am I like coming out to you or something? Why am I like, oh, don't you just obviously know who I am or whatever? Like, or why would it be a surprise that I was some part of who I am if you know who I am? Does that track?
There's nothing like smashing your own ego,
It is an
you
ego.
know?
That's the other thing identity is. It is all like weird egos. And so you are always like reforming. You're always like smashing it down and reforming. And I think you and I are used to that and good at that, like at this point. But there's always more. You're never done. There's always a new way to smash it and reform it, you know?
Yeah, you just got to reshape things, right? Like I don't even know if like, the piece will ever be ready for the kiln. You know what I mean? Like I just think that like, we're always it's like clay, like we're always just going to be reshaping the same thing until it's like how we like it, but I don't know if it's ever going to be ready for the kiln,
Well,
you know?
because we're always changing too. Like the text is never fixed because the author isn't dead, and the reader isn't dead. And so the next day the reader has a new experience and that's going to go into what the text means or like whatever. Like it just goes on forever. But I really
There's
like it.
no arrival point.
Yeah. It's not. It's about a flow, a state of becoming, right? Yeah.
Aquarian Music Witch, the podcast, is made possible by listeners like you. To support this project, you can contribute directly through our Ko-fi page at ko-fi.com/Aquarian Music Witch, or consider subscribing to our Supercast page. With the AMW Supercast Content Access Pass, you'll gain access to a vault of exclusive content and other cosmic perks starting at just $5 a month. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, my landlord, who's not like, the most wise person in the universe, he's a little no
You never
nonsense.
know. You never know.
Right, maybe secretly, right? Like he doesn't fuck around. He is no nonsense. but he said something to me once about like his favorite quote is I forget verbatim, but it's something along the lines of like the best adventure or journey is to like sail and journey and to never arrive, you know, and I think that there's some truth to that. Never arrive at your destination. Okay, I think
I think
that
there's
there's
a
some
lot of
truth.
truth to that. I think that's been kind of how my music career has been shaping up, especially recently. It's funny to think about because when I was at the kind of beginning side of that, I was like, what do I want that to be? I want to be a musician, and I had to kind of figure out what that meant. And it meant, and at some point it was like eventually I'll get music out. It'll be real music and I'll get paid for it. Well, I have music out. I've gotten paid for it. I'm growing my audience all the time, but I've put out like 8 singles now. And I
Oh,
have, not to mention the album I made you when I was in college. I made that
just
literally just for
incredible,
you.
which is so good,
I
and
didn't
I
mean to
cannot wait
mention
for
that,
your new music to come out too that you've shown me on your rooftop in Philly.
yeah, there's more stuff coming out this year, and I do think it would be really fun actually to go back and redo that album that I made you. But it was just the weird. I don't even know why I did that. Like I just got really obsessive, and I just was like, I have a whole album worth of an idea, and I made it, and you were the only person I gave a copy to, and now you've given it back, so I do have it on my computer. Did I send you it? I forgot.
No, you never sent it to me.
I'm
You told me
sorry.
that. No, send it
Yeah.
to me whenever you can. I would love to. I just remember it being so special and unique. And I feel like, you know, too, it doesn't, it's like the reason why you created it was just to create it. It like just to touch on like the why. I don't think that there needs to be always with art and everything like a, you know, like a why other than just like to create. It's like you're just creating for the sake of creating.
Yeah.
And
It's
I remember
storytelling.
that album just it was kind of cool. Yeah, storytelling is just a way for and that album was like for me at that time.
It
Like I
was for
felt
you
it.
at that time.
And no one else like really heard it. It was like in my car and I was listening to it and I always thought it was so special and loved it every second of it. And it's kind of cool like to like think about that because you're probably going to be famous like literally with your music one day, maybe sooner than later. I just think it's that spectacular. And I know that that's probably going to happen. And to think like, yeah, in like 2011 or whatever, I was like listening to her secret album. Like, you know, like it's a one of a kind copy original, you know, and
But it
it's just
really, I mean, I appreciate that you appreciate it. I think for some reason, only you would have gotten it at that time. And it would be in a way fun to go remake that album because there was a lot about it that was like very much my first kind of work, especially singing. And I had a lot to work through with my voice because my voice was very, if you think about like energy centers, I had a big block on my throat chakra. And I wonder if you could hear that at the time or if you listen now. I'll send it right after we're done recording this or as soon as I can find it after we're done recording it. I think it's on this computer. But anyway, I clearly had some stuff to work through with my throat, but I also think it was like trying to mark a time and trying to mark something that felt really important to say to you. And I think it wasn't really for anybody else at the time. So maybe I should just kind of leave it where it was. But it's funny to think about that because that was really the first effort I did at any of that and feeling the whole time like I don't know what fame is really. I think fame is also something we kind of make up at this point. Like I think I
yeah.
just manifest fame in my own head and then that's all true for me like is almost how it works. But so I don't know where like talking about destinations and arrival points like where is that? You know, how famous do I get before I'm famous? I made 8 songs. I get paid for my music. Like, you know, like I kind of made it, but I also kind of haven't made it even whatsoever. But every day you just put a little bit more into going on that path really. And that's the joy of my life. Like that's why I think is I don't know I have a lot of diverse things I think I want to contribute, I'm interested in, and I think I can help the world with. But for some reason it always all comes back to music and always has for me. And so I'm not exactly sure what that means, except that I'm always supposed to, for as long as I'm alive, be making music, you know, in some capacity.
If anyone is, it's you.
Mm.
I'm like, seriously, I have, I just remember like, God, like you helped me, like, I don't even know if you know, like, I don't know if we've ever really touched on it before, but like the reason why I have like, a piano in my home and play piano is because like I wanted to learn how to play piano, and I remember taking piano lessons for like 10 weeks, like once a week, I think, with this woman, and trying to learn how to read music and everything. And it just was not computing. And like there were just these few little times where you would teach me like a few chords, like really like gently, like not like, like a teacher, like rigid. It was just like, oh, this is more simple than you might think, and just like showing me. And I remember it was like it made so much sense. And now, not that I'm like, the next Mozart, but I am like,
You're a very talented
playing.
musician. You've
Thank
you've
you.
come up with like original work that's I like your work because you developed your own style completely that you wouldn't have been able to if you had taken lessons. And I wouldn't say that to everybody. I would say to a lot of people, just start with some lessons, get some piano under your belt, and then you can go from there. For you, once again, just for you, I think the best path was the one that you walked for yourself, and you just kind of taught yourself certain things, and you have some very interesting music that you've made.
Like you're the one though who actually, like, I don't have perfect pitch, but I think I have relative pitch.
Mhm.
And I remember, like, I don't know how to read music, and you were like, oh, well, like some people have like relative or perfect pitch and like can like hear music and replicate it. And I actually can, I found out that I can do that. And like, I don't know, like you have a way with music unlike anybody else. Like I feel like you understand music in the most intuitive way, but also you understand like, the bones of it, the mathematics, and all of that too, like all the facets, all the fractals, and you get it and understand it. And I think that your music has evolved so much too, and the way that your voice is now, like it's almost like it almost like echoes some of my favorite artists like Lana Del Rey or like Hope Sandoval, or like it's just like almost echoing that kind of like beautiful magnetic, like thing that only special, I feel like special people are able to like hold and harbor that, and you're one of them. And I just think if anyone is like just like meant to do music in this lifetime, you are definitely in that bundle. Like I think that, that's like your gift.
Well, I
And you
love
can.
you for getting me. I love you for just always seeing me. That is a treat. That is a gift to me. Because I don't know that I'm like the same as Lana, but it is something like that's always been. Well, you also, it's funny. And let me also say reciprocally, I don't know if we ever talked about this either. You were a huge influence on my early music tastes. Like huge. Like one time, so first of all, there was Evanescence, the queen goddess of them all, and the obsession with Evanescence. And um then there was OTEP. And one time it was on the way back from an
About her.
Evanescence concert that my mom drove us to, you, me, and the third Aquarius, who will not be named, of our friend group, just because I feel like it's rude because she did not consent to being here. But
Right.
but anyway, so the three of us went to this Evanescence concert. We must have been in middle school. And then on the drive home in the back of my mom's Honda Odyssey minivan, I was like not sure what to do, and I had a Walkman, like old style, cheapo ear like circles Walkman headphones, and you were like, I don't know if you'll like this, but here you go. It might be a little dark for you. I don't know if you'll be able to like if you'll want to handle it or not, or something like that. And I was like, okay. And it was OTEP. And I loved it. I spent the rest of that drive home just like absorbing. I don't know. I want to say it was maybe either Savastra or House of Secrets, but either way, I just was like totally obsessed. And then that became like my whole, like I listened to Corn, I think, because no, I think that was maybe, but oh, I'm gonna bleep out the name because I didn't mean to say it. Sorry. Um
Oh,
but
yeah. I
but
no, I think that was her, but we
yeah.
both like them.
It was like the
Me and
whole
her
type
have
of
a lot
music.
the same.
Yeah. And you and Evanescence was you and OTEP was you big time. And that became like a huge a huge band for me. Like her music touched me so seriously. I didn't even know until much later that Otep was queer. I don't know, obviously, if you listen, but like I didn't even know what that all was at all. But like I totally somehow, disturbingly enough, like deeply identified with that, just like rage. And like there's entire stories behind why we might identify with that as like,
Oh my God.
where we were at in life. But like, I think we both identified with that. Like it was something that just, I think, broke out of, how do I want to say that? It's like it broke out. It was like a feeling that it was just like you couldn't even conceive of having in the place that we grew up. You know? Like you couldn't even possibly be that radical to feel that much rage until that moment. I was like, oh my God, this is possible. And it was just like it was like an expansion of the real possibility. Amazing.
I did not, I haven't thought about that in forever about like those bands really. And
Yeah, well, they
that
were so
style
angry because the
we're
other
into.
side of it
We were
was
so man, we were so mad.
we were so mad. But the other side of that was it was almost like, I don't, again, a canon event, but I think it didn't, I wouldn't say it dragged me down because it was like a totally what I needed to do. On the other hand, I now understand, this is a very interesting thing to get into. I've never voiced this, and this is very, very important. I now understand how much the music energy will affect your personal energy and even will manifest things. And so I got so into that music, and it is so dark and it is so painful. And I sat in that pain, and it was like my entire soundscape for a few years there until I kind of moved into a different phase of like Iron and Wine and Fleet Foxes and shit in college. But like a couple years there, I was really big on that kind of whole sound and just like sonic pain. And I feel like I was in
Um,
pain, and some of it was the music. Like some of it was because of that too, you know? Do you know what I mean?
I 100%, I don't really listen to like anything like that anymore for that exact reason. It brings you down. It's actually kind of unlistenable to me at this point.
If you're not
Um,
vibrating with it. Why were we vibrating with it at the time, Stephen?
I
What the hell?
I
That
think
was a
because
dark place.
yeah, we were experiencing, I'm loving the word this podcast, but like we were experiencing some contrast, right?
Mhm.
Like now I'm like finding like I really only want to listen to music that makes me feel good. You know, even if there's some catharsis and some pain and sadness, like trust me when I say I can, mope around with some Elliott Smith and some Mazzy Star all day long. I
Mhm.
can like around and like and but also it's like beautiful too, and like it's like I can make like beautiful art to that kind of soundscape too. But then sometimes I'm only it's fresh in my mind because I'm new to her and I love her, I'm obsessed with her, but sometimes I just need like really nice melodies like what this artist Mitski
I
is
love
putting out.
Mitski. Did you know I just covered her washing machine song? I think I
Stop.
sent you it. Maybe I didn't. If I didn't, I was a
No, you did. Oh my God. I'll have to. I love Mitski. No, my someone I know in St. Pete introduced me to Mitski, and I am just loving everything because she reminds me of you. That's funny that you
it
covered. It's like creative, it's
was a fun
her
cover.
voice is angelic, and the lyrics are always interesting, and she's got so many different kinds of styles in her music. It's very eclectic, and she's just churning out stuff too. Like, yeah, oh my gosh. So anyway, yeah, the vibration that music puts out is like a state of our health too. Like it's tied to our mental and emotional health, I think. And so I can't really listen to anything that's metal anymore, or even like hard rock can be kind of annoying to me. I need music that is like more ethereal, is what I'm coming to find. Yeah.
Well, I think it's all about, honestly, like, and I can fully say this with my full chest as just like an actual expert of music TM. It's all about the vibration. Like I feel like it's what you're vibrating with. What, you know what I mean? Or like what you resonate with. And if you're just past it, you're past it. Or if you're beyond it, you're beyond it. And that's a good place to be. it's
Absolutely.
interesting to think about, and the story that or like how that plays into the story of the whole thing of our lives, but I don't know. But it's just it's really like, how sad. Where were we back then? That was really it. That was like the wow, like we can feel this. This is validating whatever was happening for us at the time. I'm so glad that we're beyond that. What the hell?
I think that we were a little lost. And yeah, I just definitely like kind of put that to the side a little bit, that even, well, there's like obviously acknowledgement, but it's like, I put that to the side because it doesn't even make me feel good to think about it too much, that I felt that much, like just heaviness around that time, and how it reflected, like through like the music and the movies I was interested in, and like the types of voices that I was like listening to, even like just like comedy stuff, and like just everything, like my taste and everything is like turned upside down, like flipped on its back, and it keeps on doing so, like more and more and more, like towards like a more not just all positive, because that would be definitely not the case, but like just I'm always seeking depth, of course, but like different types of emotions and healthily expressing them. And like for me, for example, like that's like the thing, like that style of music, while it's a creative, cathartic outlet for heavy metal bands like OTEP, or others that I was interested in at the time, like Tool, for example, was another. And I just also like see too now, like how that kind of thing can also be very toxic, and it's almost like poisoning yourself with it, especially in heavy doses like that, and it does alter your vibration. And for me, it just doesn't mix well with what's been happening for over a decade for
Yeah.
me, or almost, yeah, over a decade for me now. Like it's like it does not land well, certain vibrations and sound currents, and that is definitely there. And yeah, at that time, I think that, God, I wish that someone had put a stop to it. Honestly,
Really? Because I feel like it had to happen. Do you think you wish you could have just bypassed it?
I wish I could have bypassed it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wish I could have skipped that part, to be honest with you. That was not a fun time for me at all. And
It was.
yeah, and I think
It
that the
was.
music not helping. I think that like, yeah, music is a bigger spell than we even know, huh? Um
Yeah. Well, I think it
yeah.
definitely played a big part in the whole, but it wasn't the cause. It was like reciprocally just part of that. It was like a symbiotic part of, I don't know what whatever was happening, whatever happens in that area.
Yeah. But now if I like see someone, I don't know, just raging out to like metal and like mosh pitting and whatever, I'm personally at this point like that's, and it's judgmental, yeah, but I'm like, oh, that's a young soul, like that must be there are a lot of new souls on the planet right now. And but I have to remember my roots too, and so it's almost like, oh well, I hope that one day they kind of can find their peace too, in some regards anyway. Hey, God, no one's gonna listen to this podcast because it's like an hour and a half.
Oh, you'd be surprised. I don't know if I'll agree with it, but I think people will find it very interesting. And I sure appreciate your time. But it is also quite literally New Year's Eve. And so maybe this is a good time to stop and enjoy the arbitrary turn into a new year here. But I think this was
Yeah,
a perfect way to end this one. I couldn't have imagined it better. I'm completely blessed to know you, my friend, and I'm so thankful for you and for your time and for your storytelling. You're amazing. That was
I
really
love you so
cheesy, but I
much.
really do love you.
No, I love you. You're literally one of my favorite people I've ever known. Oh my God. You know, it's so funny. He just came on the bed, Gus.
Guys,
Um,
we didn't even
yeah.
talk about Gus, the cat I
uh,
gave you.
the cat that you gifted me, I think it's been 14 years now.
It's
Like
been a long
14 years
time.
ago, just came up on the bed, like right up to the phone. I think he just wants to say hi or
That was
bye or
perfect
both. And
timing. A king, as always, with a perfect sense of timing.
oh my gosh, uh he's a king, but he's also just so psychic, and
I'm
he's, you
glad.
know, just that human soul in a cat body kind of like thing.
I
But
know.
yeah, I feel super blessed to know you, and thank you very much for reaching out about this. I've been thinking about you, and I love that it worked out so easily and effortlessly to do the podcast with you. I think that you literally asked me yesterday almost on a whim, and
I know it
so
was almost on a whim, and yet I think I'm going to definitely start the whole thing with this because it's just exactly right, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
it just worked.
It just, well, I love you so much, my friend. Thank you. I hope you have a blessed new year, a wonderful 2024. I think it's going to be great. I really do.
I hope that you're
Oh, you muted yourself as you said that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I muted it. Great. Some comedic relief.
That was the universe being like, shut up, Steven. It's going to be great.
It was no, I was just saying, yeah, in agreement to that. I think that things are actually going really well, and I think it's only going to get better.